What's up everyone? Today's video is my October wrap up and I'm going to give you my reading to zero stats so that way you all know like how many books I still have left on my TBR, how many I read, unhauled, hauled, all that good stuff. So let's get into it. Okay, so October was a good month in terms of like the amount that I read, but a bad month in terms of like my ratings and just my overall thoughts with the books that I read. I participated in a team TBR challenge in my book club. I have an online book club that I created on Facebook. The link up here if you want to check it out and just see what it's all about. But I read a whole bunch because we were trying to win that challenge, but I didn't actually get to read all of the books off of my shelf. I read a total of 14 books in the month of October, but only 9 of those were off my shelf. The other ones I got from the library. I borrowed from the library. Now, it's not totally the challenge's fault. There were definitely 3 books that were about IVF that I really wanted to read that were at my library. So I did read those and they were able to count within the challenge. And so even if I wasn't doing the challenge, I still was going to read those books about IVF since I am getting ready to start my own IVF process at the beginning of the year. I also went through my shelf and I unhauled a very good portion. Probably back up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have this reading to zero challenge. It's something that I do here on my channel because I was overwhelmed with the amount of books that I had bought, had been gifted, had been, you know, sent by publishers. And it was really hard for me to figure out like what I was going to read. So I am doing this challenge up until the end of next year. So the end of 2022, and it's to get my shelf to zero. That's what I'm doing. I am reading pretty much everything that I own in order to get to zero. And then I will be able to, you know, kind of replenish my shelf, but also in hopes of like really fine tuning my tastes. So like I said, I did unhaul 13 books. I'm just gonna put up a graphic right here so you can see all 13. I decided to get rid of The Maidens because I heard a lot of boring things about it. I got rid of The Twilight Wife, really didn't hear anything about it and I wasn't interested in it anymore. I got rid of a couple books that I was either borrowing from some people or that I just didn't really think I needed anymore. So 52 Uncommon Dates, that's something that I got because I was gonna do like date nights with Alvin, but I'm gonna go and unhaul it and give it to my brother who is currently dating and is gonna be getting married hopefully in the next year or so. I'm also giving him a couple's devotional. This I actually did read half of and I was listening to their podcast. Alvin and I were doing it together and it is a very informational book, but I just don't see us like finishing it at the moment. So I'm gonna have my brother borrow it for a while or kind of just, you know, send it all through my siblings for them to try out. I was borrowing from my sister a like kind of Bible study called You're Already Amazing, and that I'm going to be giving back to her when she visits for Thanksgiving. I was also borrowing a book called Mom Set Free. This was like a self-help book that I was borrowing from my friend Brandy and I ended up sending that back to her as well. I am getting rid of 8 Perfect Hours. I decided I do not want to read it. I did try and start the audiobook this month and it just wasn't for me. So unhauled that. I also unhauled Bunny because I mean, it's been a few years now since it came out and I feel like nothing has really made me really want to pick it up. So I don't think I'm going to like it because it's one of those really weird books, and if you watched my what I don't like in thrillers, I'll put it up here for you guys. You know, I just really don't like books like that. I'm unhauling A Game for All the Family. This was one I just picked up from a little free library, so I can go ahead and put it back in a little free library. I also am unhauling Lou. I got that from a little free library and I didn't realize it was like the 4th in a series. So I'm going to leave that in a little free library for, you know, someone else to have. Then I'm unhauling Half Broke Horses, The Girl He Used to Know, and a Bible study that I had called Becoming the Woman That God Wants You to Be or something like that. I had done like half of that and it's just not for me. So that is why I'm unhauling all of those books. I'm pretty proud of myself for unhauling 13 and I think that like all of those, like I am not sad about. I really thought long and hard and I just didn't see myself wanting to pick those up. Like especially every month when I do my monthly TBR, I want to be excited about the books. And so there are some books on my shelf that I might hear things about them that I don't like anymore, or I might just be fine tuning my tastes and realize that that book just isn't for me. So I really like unhauling each month. Now, I did haul some books this month. My goal is obviously to not haul at all. Well, that's a really weird saying, to not haul at all, but there were some specific instances that I did haul this month and I am very excited for the books that I did get. So first off, you all saw in my like becoming that girl, like living my best bookish life, I did buy the book Falling, and this cost me $30, and I actually had every intention of taking this back, because after I bought it, I was like, okay, cool. So I bought this for a video, but then I was like, I don't actually need this book, you know what I mean? So I actually went to go return it, and I didn't realize that they only had a very short return time, so I missed the return time. Even though I had the receipt and everything, it said on there like I couldn't return it after so-and-so date. So I do own this now, and I didn't realize it until after I made my November TBR video. So I'm probably including this in my November TBR if I can get to all of the books that I said I was going to read. So yeah, that is, you know, I own this now, so that's cool. For $30 too. Okay, I shouldn't complain too much about buying that book though for $30, because I had a really nice friend on Instagram. She messaged me and she said, hey, I'm done reading Razorblade Tears. I saw that that was a book that you were interested in, and I really want to gift it to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you are so incredibly nice. So she sent me Razorblade Tears, and I am very excited to get to this. I mean, I'm probably not going to get to it, you know, definitely not in November, and I think I already have my TBR pretty booked and set for December. But of course, I'll be getting to it in the new year, because all of the books that I currently own are gonna be read in the new year, all of them. And I'm really excited. I've heard amazing things about this, and I think that it would align with my tastes. I just want to make sure that I'm in a good mindset and I'm not trying to rush through it. But I'm very excited, so thank you again for sending this to me. Then last but not least, I actually swapped for this book. So the books that I was unhauling, I've been keeping like a big pile of them, because I swap them or I sell them, or I will go take them to the book exchange, which is what Gwen takes her books to, like she's over in Virginia Beach. So I did end up listing a bunch of books. I did make about $100 or so selling a few of them, and I put that in like my own little book fund. And so that way when I do buy books, I buy from that fund. So I'm not just buying books from like random money. It's like my own little spending fund. But I do like to swap books for ones that are on my current wish list, you know, because I'm keeping track of all the ones that I'm interested in. So I did swap for A Beautiful Terrible Thing. This is a memoir of marriage and betrayal. It is pretty small, but I am very excited about this because I did have this on my list that I really wanted to read, and I'm glad that someone was able to swap with me for a book that they wanted of mine that I didn't want anymore. And you know, it's such a nice trade, because you just pay like the $3 in media mail shipping, and you know, you get a book that you wanted to read instead. Okay, before I go through all of the books that I read, I'm gonna just tell you my updated stats for everything. So I started the month with 115 books. That was, you know, from my stats from the previous month. I ended up reading 14, but only 9 of those came from my shelf. So 9 of those I read. I unhauled 13 from my shelf, and then I ended up hauling 3 to put back on my shelf. So my grand total of books that I have left over is 96 books. So that is what I currently have in my house. Not my favorites, like those don't count behind me. Those are all favorites that I'm like keeping, but I'm talking about books that I have to read that I have not read yet, that are on my current shelf to read, is 96. But I feel like I have been doing a really great job. I've been sticking to this. My number has been dwindling, and I just feel really good about it, and I'm definitely gonna be able to read all of those books within the year of 2022, so I know I'm going to hit my goal at the end, and I am very, very excited for that. Okay, let's talk about the books that I read this month. So I just finished reading The Loop and After the Fire, because it was part of a reading vlog of me reading the best and the worst books on my TBR. So technically this is the best book on my TBR, this is the worst book on my TBR. I'm just gonna give you my very quick thoughts about it, because I do have a whole reading vlog about it. The Loop, I ended up DNFing it at 80%, and I gave it a 1-star rating. And After the Fire, I did read it all the way through, but I ended up giving it a 2-star rating. Both of these are young adult books, even though The Loop really shouldn't be, and doesn't really look like it, but I just really did not like either of these, and I'm just really glad that that video is over with. So The Loop is a like apocalyptic book about teenagers, and they're kind of like turning into like zombies, or you know, just like raging after people. And it's following a group of teenagers in order to kind of like, you know, go on the run and, you know, cure the whole world and stuff like that. I just didn't like anything about this book, so that is why. This one is about a cult. Supposedly it is taking after like the Waco siege in 1993. And it is just incredibly too long. Nothing really happens until after the 60% mark. And that's when I started getting a little interested in it. It's very character heavy. So definitely not for me. Next up, I read a graphic novel called It's All Absolutely Fine. This I'm giving a 2-star rating. It wasn't written for me. This is a graphic novel. It says darkly comic, honest, and unapologetic. It's an account of daily struggles with mental health and what it's like trying to be a person when you feel like a potato. I think that because of it being like a dark comic and also just geared towards mental health in general, I just feel like I couldn't relate to a lot of stuff in it. Not that I don't struggle with my own mental health at times. I definitely could not relate to most of what was in this book. So I think it was just not geared towards me. Next up, I read Love Talk. This is a book that I had on my TBR. I don't even remember like where I got it from, but this is supposed to be speaking each other's love languages as a couple. I gave this 2 stars. I felt like I learned nothing from it. I don't know if it's because Alvin and I just don't really struggle a lot with our marriage, because we have worked through a lot of things and I've done some other couple devotionals before, but I felt like this was just a lot of like jibber jabber and it didn't actually have like specific advice in it, so it was kind of a waste of time. Next up, I read Agnes at the End of the World. This is another cult apocalyptic young adult book. I read so many young adult books this month, and it is very similar to After the Fire. I read this one first and then I read After the Fire, and like thinking about them before I started filming this video, I was like, wait, what happened in which book? Like, I'm getting them all confused and all mixed up now. So maybe if you liked one, you might like the other one. But this one follows Agnes and her sister Beth, and then they have a little brother who has type 1 diabetes. The rep for type 1 diabetes is really great because of the fact that like she is really caring about him, and she is making sure that he has his insulin at the end of the world and all that kind of stuff. This is very religious heavy though. I would say that this is a like Christian fiction apocalyptic book, and it gets really weird at the end. It's really hard to explain without giving it spoilers, but I rated this about 3 stars just because I did really like the first half. It was the second half that I just couldn't get down with like the way that it ended. I thought that the way that it ended was kind of stupid, but I definitely think that this one is better than After the Fire because it was definitely more exciting to read about, more adventurous to read about, whereas the other one was just more boring. Also, it's super weird because both of the books call the people like outside of their cult or commune outsiders with a capital O. So like, it's so confusing. Like, which book did I even read? Because they're getting mixed together. Okay, I read El Deafo, which is a middle grade graphic novel. This is about a little girl. I mean, she is a bunny girl, but she gets this little hearing machine so that way she can hear. And it is so cute. I'm definitely keeping this on my favorite shelf. I gave it 5 stars. I would definitely love to read this to my own little kids. I think it has great representation. It is so cute, and I absolutely loved it. Next up, I read Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, and I actually really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I think that it also has really good representation. Archer himself, he is like mute, and so he uses sign language in order to communicate. This is about Bree in like a small town, and she ends up falling in love with Archer, but there's like some of these like kind of, I mean, they're not really mysteries, but kind of mysteries, you know, like the small town drama. And so there's been drama with Archer before, along with even Archer's like parents with some other parents. And so Archer's kind of like looked down upon for being mute, and also just like having anger problems, or people are just like weirded out by him in general. But I really like Archer as a character, and I really think his relationship with Bree is really, really great. And I thought that it definitely had some hard-hitting elements and was a kind of emotional story. Next up, I read Running with Scissors, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I am a big fan of memoirs. You probably know that about me, especially dark and disturbing ones. And this one is definitely weird and disturbing. It says on the back that this is a true story, and this is about Augustine, and his mom is like bipolar or schizophrenic, and she actually gives him to this like therapist or psychiatrist. I'm not exactly sure the difference between all of those. But anyway, so he starts living with this guy, and Augustin is actually gay, and he ends up having like an affair with this like 30-year-old man while he's only like 13. That's like only a very small chunk of this book. I mean, there's so many other things going on, but after I kind of looked up, because I think someone told me that there was a movie, and so I started like researching more about this. There's actually some things about how this might actually not be true, and that a lot of this might have been just for storytelling purposes. There is a movie, which I have not seen, but that kind of made me just rate it in the middle, just because I am not necessarily sure if this is a true story, just because I've seen some things about it. So just letting you know going into that even though this is a dark and disturbing book and I love memoirs and stuff, I'm not exactly sure about the representation in this book, so I just want to put that out there. I also read Rock, Paper, Scissors this month. I already sold my copy that I had, but I have a whole video about me reading it and playing a drinking game while reading it. Spoiler alert, I only rated it 2 stars, but I'll put the video up there so you can go check that out if you're interested to hear all of my thoughts about it. There's also some like high quality content while I'm drinking over there. Okay, then I have just a few more books, but I feel like, you know, a lot of people probably won't be interested in these ones. I read 3 different IVF books this month. One of them was called Get a Life, like His and Hers Guide to Surviving IVF, and then one was How to Cope for IVF, and then one was called IVF, a Detailed Guide. The detailed guide one, I actually rated 4 stars. I did really like that one. The other 2, I only rated 2 stars because one I felt like didn't really have any information in it, and the other one, although it did have a lot of information in it, it was from his side and her side, so it felt really repetitive. But all of these were also written in the UK, so I felt like I didn't get an actual representation. I couldn't find any books actually that were written about IVF that were here in the States. So that was just, you know, all the research that I did for IVF. I read The Pegan Diet. This one I ended up giving 2 stars. This was supposed to be a mixture of paleo and vegan because I did try a vegan diet challenge this month, and I was looking for something that would kind of incorporate like everything that I kind of believe in. But anyway, I just felt like this was just a waste of time to read this book because it's just a waste. Just don't read it. Then the last thing I read was, Hygge. This was like the Danish guide to comfort or something like that. I ended up giving this 3 stars. I mean, it was fine. There wasn't a whole bunch of content in it. I just really wanted to read a bunch of books about like cozy living and how to make your house more cozy, how to, you know, have that like, you know, really great fall winter vibe. It was just okay. It wasn't anything crazy. There was, you know, some recipes in there, some pictures. So even though it looks like a really beautiful book, it didn't really have the content that I wanted or needed in it. Okay, I think that's it. This video is way too long. I read way too many books this month. I feel pretty positive though that my November TBR is actually going to be books that I liked, because I just felt like even though I read a lot, I felt like I just didn't love anything as much, and that's always just a not great feeling, you know? I would much rather read 3 books and like love all of them than read 15 books and like 1 of them. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye everyone.